In this video, we're going to be talking about how we can locate rational numbers on a number line. So first things first, what is a rational number? A rational number is a number that can be written as a fraction. So for example, in number 1, it says -4/3. Find this on the number line. This is an improper fraction. However, it's still being written as a fraction, so it is rational. Now, because it's improper, I do want to turn it into a mixed number, so I'm going to go ahead and divide. If you don't need to set the division house, you don't have to if it makes sense to you. 3 can fit into 4 one time, so I have a whole number of 1. I'm going to keep that negative sign. 3 times 1 is 3. There is 1 left over, so 1 is my numerator, and denominator always stays the same. So -4/3 is also -1 1/3. Now, to go ahead and label this on the number line, -1 is my whole number, so we're going to be looking at everything after -1 because that is where that 1/3 is going to be. Whenever you are finding numbers on the number line, you always want to count your tick marks. Always leave the whole number where you're starting alone. You don't want to count that as one of your tick marks. So in this case, I have 1, 2, 3 tick marks to get me to a whole number. So that means that all of these numbers are going to be out of 3, which works for us in our case because we have the same denominator. So now that you know what it's going to be out of, what the denominator is, our fraction is telling us that we are looking for the first tick mark. So our first tick mark right here, I'm going to change my color here. I'm going to place a dot on our first tick mark, and this is where -4/3 or -1 1/3 is. Let's try some more for practice. Find -1.5 on the number line. So we have our whole number of -1. We're not going to count that tick mark, but we know it's going to be anything after since we're dealing with negatives. I'm going to go ahead and count these tick marks just to see how many I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks to get me to my whole number. So that means I'm out of 4. Now, because we have -1.5, I'm going to ignore that -1 for right now because we already know it's after it. And I'm going to be looking at this this 0.5, which is the same as 0.50. And if we remember, whenever we have denominators of 4, we can think about quarters. So how many quarters is going to get me to 50 cents? That's going to be 2. That means that 0.50 is going to be on the second tick mark. So I'm going to go ahead and look at not the first one, but the second tick mark is where I'm going to place my dot. And this is where -1.5 is on the number line. Example 3, find -5/4 and -1.75 on a number line. So let's start with -5/4. We're going to go ahead and turn this into an improper fraction. 4 can fit into 5 one time. My denominator stays the same, and there is 1 left over to get us back to 5. So I am going to be looking for -1 1/4. We know it's going to be after the -1 because it's a negative. I'm not going to count that -1, so I'm looking for my first tick mark out of 4. So my first tick mark is where I'm going to place my dot, and this is where -5/4 or -1 1/4 is. Next one is -1.75. Again, I'm dealing with my negatives, so I'm looking at all of my numbers after -1 here. I'm going to go ahead and count my tick marks. So it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks. I'm looking out of 4 here. Again, we want to think about quarters. So how many quarters is going to get us to 75 cents? That's going to be 3. So I need to be looking for my third tick mark. So 1, 2, 3. So my third tick mark here is where -1.75 is. Last one, I need to write the rational numbers for each of these points. Let's go ahead and start with our positive numbers. So E looks like it's in between 0 and 1. Right off the bat, you can think if there is a number that is evenly in between 0 and 1, that is going to be 0.5 or think about 50 cents. But I'm also going to double check myself and count my tick marks. So remember, we never count the number that we're starting with. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're out of 4 here. And E is on 1, 2, the second one. And we know that 2 fourths can be simplified into 1/2. So E is at 1/2. C is coming after 1, so I'm going to include my whole number of 1. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks, and C is on the first one. So C is on 1 and 1/4. F is coming after -2. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 tick marks, and it looks like F is on the second one. And as we just said, we know we can simplify this into -2 and 1/2. A is coming after -4, so I have -4. It's on the first tick mark out of 1, 2, 3, 4. So -4 and 1/4. B is also after -4. We know it's out of 4, and we know it's on 1, 2. The second tick mark, which we also know is -4 and 1/2. D, our last one, it's coming after -5. It is on the first tick mark out of 1, 2, 3, 4. So -5 and 1/4.